U.S. President Donald Trump says tariffs on auto imports could be announced very soon.
I probably will tell you that on April 2nd, but it'll be in the neighborhood of 25%.
It comes as Canada is preparing for two other sets of tariffs Trump has promised to impose next month. Blanket 25% tariffs on all Canadian goods imported into the U.S. are expected on March 4th. Plus, an additional 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports is set for March 12th. These tariffs could stack on top of each other to create a potential 50% tariff on those Canadian metals. But Canada's still trying to make the case against Trump's proposed levies.
Regardless of which new tariffs the president is reflecting on, one thing remains clear. Any tariffs on Canada will mean higher prices for Americans and will cost American jobs. If ever there are tariffs brought in Canada, our response will be immediate and strong.
Canada's ambassador to the U.S., Kirsten Hillman, joins me now. Hi, Ambassador. Thanks for coming on.
Happy to be here.
So President Trump is now musing about 25% tariffs on foreign cars as of April 2nd. Obviously, that would be a hugely damaging development for the Canadian auto sector. What do you know about this new commitment? Is it something that we could maybe avoid because of the new NAFTA, CUSMA?
Well, I mean, I would hope so. I think that we had a big part of our negotiations in the new NAFTA, the CUSMA, was around the auto sector, the integration of our auto sector, and making sure that the North American auto sector was shored up and competitive vis-a-vis other regions, other automaker regions of the world. And that need to be shored up and competitive has only increased in the years since the new NAFTA, the CUSMA, came into force. So we have actually talked to the administration about the auto sector, about ensuring that we are keeping certain products from, in particular, China out of our North American supply chain in order to be sure that we are, promoting jobs and promoting innovation in North America. So if this policy continues to go through, I think that the conversations we've already had are going to help us in that regard.
Yeah, it's not just the 25% on autos, obviously. Trump's threatening this 25% tariff on all of our goods as of March 4th. What's your working assumption at this point? Do you think that we will get an extension to that? What is Howard Lutnick, the new incoming Commerce Secretary, saying about Canada's fate?
So Mr. Lutnick, Mr. Hassett, who is the president's economic advisor, other members of the White House, also Trump advisors that we know that are, up on the Hill, have all said the March 4th deadline relates to the border and to fentanyl, and that the president was pleased with the announcements we made, but not only the announcements, the progress that we are making in the fight against fentanyl, in the fight against irregular migration, illegal migration. For example, illegal migration from Canada to the United States is down 90% in recent months. And we have taken important measures with respect to the fight against fentanyl in terms of authorities and money and resources. The fentanyl czar that we have now appointed, who is coming here to D.C. in the coming days, has already had conversations with American counterparts. So lots and lots of work done there that is leading to results. And we are reporting on those results to our American colleagues every week. So we're feeling good about the work that we're doing there. And as I say, everybody that we are talking to are saying that the March 4th deadline is tied to continued efforts on our part and together with them to fight, in particular, the scourge of fentanyl.
So are you getting signals then that we might get a reprieve because we've had some success already at the border with fentanyl?
So I'm getting signals that the work that we are doing and the results that we are achieving is well received. And there's a recognition that Canada has made important steps and that we are doing good work. But continuing to report on those results is something that we're going to do over the coming days and weeks as well.
In Trump's first term, he was surrounded by a number of pro-trade economic figures. I'm thinking of Gary Cohn, Stephen Mnuchin, even Larry Kudlow. Now it's essentially Peter Navarro, and we know he is the ultimate protectionist. He's a big believer in tariffs, and he famously trashed our Prime Minister on TV the last time he was in that position. Is it fair to say that what we are trying to do, trying to avoid tariffs, might be a much more difficult task this time? Is there really any hope of convincing Trump to lay off Canada if the guy he's listening to is Peter Navarro?
Well, I think that the president listens to a number of different individuals. There's no question that Mr. Navarro is a trusted advisor of the president, but he has other advisors around him as well. And I think the president, we're seeing this, the president has said since he was running for office, since last time he was in office, that he really believes in tariffs as a tool. And that tool is wielded for different purposes. It's wielded for leverage on non-trade related matters, fentanyl and border, as we were just talking about. It is wielded to, I guess, find a balance where he feels that things are out of balance with the United States. And on that, we're seeing that with respect, for example, he's talking a lot about the tariffs that the Europeans charge on automobiles versus what Americans charge on automobiles, which he sees as unfair. And so he's looking at a tariff as a tool to redress that unfairness or that lack of balance, reciprocity. And then he's using tariffs as a means of protecting domestic industries that he is interested in supporting. And I think steel and aluminum is a case in point there, where the president has said many times that he would like to see the steel and aluminum industry in the United States get stronger and get bigger. So I guess my answer to your question is the tariff tool is a tool that is used for many different purposes. And our job, Canada's job, my team, our lawmakers, our businesses, is to demonstrate in each of those instances that tool, when wielded against Canada, has the opposite effect of what the president is trying to do. And I think that we have good cases to do that, or that we are responsive to concerns that he has, and that the working together is going to be better for the American people, for jobs, for competitiveness, than ripping apart these very efficient and effective supply chains.
Chrystia Freeland is essentially saying she wants less talk. She wants less happy talk about the partnership between the two countries. She really wants the government to immediately publish a list of American goods that could be hit with retaliatory tariffs. She's essentially calling for a preemptive strike, if you will. Is that a strategy that you would support?
So from my perspective, I think that Canada needs to do two things. I think that we need to always demonstrate strength and resolve vis-a-vis the Americans, and national pride, and our willingness to stand up for ourselves and stand up for our businesses. And the Americans respect that. The Americans respect, and the president respects people that stand up for themselves and are willing to, come to the table with resolve and national pride. So that, I think, is very important. At the same time, we need to be pragmatic, and we need to be able to find a path that helps the president achieve the goals he's trying to achieve in a manner that also benefits Canada. And I think both things are possible. And in fact, I think it's probably not possible to get ourselves into a place of having a positive discussion that yields success for the president and also success for Canada without demonstrating strength. So I think we need to do both at the same time. I think it's important, though, not to escalate. I think it's important not to escalate our rhetoric here in Washington with the administration, because I'm just not sure that that's going to lead us down a path that is going to be successful for Canadians in the short and medium term.
So presenting a list of retaliatory goods, that would escalate, you think, the situation? That would not be a prudent approach?
Well, look, I'm not going to comment on Ms. Freeland's specific request. I don't think that that's for me to do at this point. I've articulated to you my perspective on this. My perspective is strong, resolved, clear, proud, but also try to find a win for both sides.
The Prime Minister said earlier this month that he perceives Trump's talk of Canada becoming the 51st state as a, quote, real threat. Is that your assessment? Do you think it's a real threat?
So here in DC, I spend my time talking to the administration, folks in the White House, the Hill, about the substantive matters at issue, because they're serious and they're important, and it's about tariffs, and it's about our economic success, and it's about economic threats to Canada and Canadians. And so I spend my time really digging into that. To be perfectly honest, the issue of the 51st state comes up very rarely in all of these discussions that I have, many a day, over weeks and weeks. It is not something that is raised with me. It is not something that comes up. But in the event that it does, and in the rare times that it does, I am clear that Canadians don't find this kind of rhetoric at all constructive, and that we don't appreciate it one little bit. And this goes to the strength and resolve and pride. And again, in every time that I have had this type of conversation with an American interlocutor, they understand that, because Americans understand national pride. So what I tend to say is, look, we want to set the conditions for a positive outcome here, for an outcome that's good for America and obviously good for Canada. And this kind of commentary is not conducive to setting the stage for those kinds of discussions.
Do you think, though, he's serious about this? Do you think when he raises the 51st state, as he does repeatedly, seemingly day in and day out, you know, even his deputy chief of staff told the premiers last week, take him at his word. I mean, should we be preparing for an annexation attempt?
I think that the president is serious in feeling, in his views, that Canada has a lot to offer, that Canada has a lot of resources, has a lot of assets that are very interesting and valuable. Beyond that, I can't say what's in his mind. I think he's a very strategic guy who uses this kind of rhetoric to set the stage for negotiations. I think creating concern in Canada is exactly his goal.
And lastly, I just want to ask you about all this booing that's been happening at hockey games recently, including most recently Saturday night between Canada and the U.S. Do you think it's appropriate for fans to be booing the American national anthem?
I think Canadians are expressing how they feel. I think that is, I will let Canadians decide the way in which they seek to express their views. I think Americans take their national anthem pretty seriously and their national symbols pretty seriously, as do we. So it certainly is something that gets attention. And I will leave it to Canadians to decide how they want to get the attention of our neighbors.
Fair enough. Thank you so much to Ambassador Kirsten Hillman. Appreciate you coming on.
Okay. Thank you.